Welcome to episode 5 of Zero is Hero. This is part 2 of the bullet journal series, looking at creating your bullet journal. In this session, I am going to go through some main templates that I use to help me do my planning on a yearly, a monthly, a weekly and a daily basis. And I'm hoping these will help you start to plan and be more productive and be able to be more sustainable in your work and your life. So these are my 3 bullet journals so far. I started my first one back in 2018 in August, and since then I have continued filling to the third one up to date today, which is January 2020. So I've managed to keep these diaries for a long time, these bullet journals for a long time, much longer than I've ever kept a journal or a diary before. And I'm going to introduce you today into the key parts of that. But before we get started, there's some things that you need. The first is, of course, the bullet journal notebook itself. Here it is. This is the type I use. There's various other types, but the key thing for me is that it's dotted. It has to have dotted sheets. I like this type because it has numbered pages already. It has 2 ribbons as well, so you can actually keep your weekly and your monthly tagged clearly. And it's good paper to write on, and these ones last me about 6 months at a time when I'm bullet journaling. I take the minimalist approach to bullet journaling, and all you need is a ruler, a pen and a notebook. I use these pens. You can use any pen you want, an old biro or whatever. I actually enjoy using a particular colour pen. I like using the brown colour, it's called sepia, and I usually use the 0.5 and the 0.1 for that. Now I do have a couple of extra bits as well that you may want to consider. To differentiate between my weeklies and my monthlies, which I'll show you in a minute, I use something called washi tape, which is just a tacky tape. You can get it in all sorts of colours, and it's just this tacky tape that you can stick down. I've got some dogs on as well. You get all sorts of types, so you can get some washi tape if you wish. And because I put the washi tape in, I have a pair of scissors so that I can cut off my corners, which I'll show you as well. And because I'm quite good at mistakes, I am also good at erasing them, and I have some Tipp-Ex. So these are the key things you need. The other thing you may want to include is a pen carrier for your bullet journal pens, and that's something I have, and it just slips on and off, but it stays keeping the pens on there. So that's something else you can have as well. I'll put links to these things in the details below. Okay, well, let's get started then. I use 3 main layouts: the yearly, the monthly and the weekly, and the weekly is also a daily. Now, you might be someone who likes to work in terms if you're in education, and the monthly can become a termly layout if you wish. Alongside these, I use a digital calendar. I use Google Calendar to keep an eye on what my actual fixed times and dates are. Before we go any further, I just want to show you the symbols that you can use. And you'll see these throughout the bullet journals. These are used in my weeklies and my monthlies, not in my yearlies, but these are the key symbols that you will come across for bullet journaling. If you've got a task to do, you use a dot next to it. Once you've completed it, you put a cross over that dot. That way you can see what tasks you have done. If it's an event, you put a circle, and if you've made a note of something, you put a dash. If your task is not completed that day, when you've allocated it to the day, you can move it forward by using that forward arrow. If you decide the task isn't worth doing or it's cancelled, you can put a line through it. And finally, if something's a priority, I put an asterisk. So those are the key aspects that you can use. This is a yearly layout. You can see I've used a calendar that is an academic calendar here, from August through to July. Down this side, I put the dates, and along the top, I put the 12 months. And you can see that I have highlighted different areas. Now, if you work in education, the key thing is when are the breaks, when are you teaching and when are you breaking from teaching. So you'll see I've got those in. I've got my annual leave and I've got other key events that are happening. Now this helps me see what's coming up over the year, making sure I've had busy weeks that I have rest time afterwards, but it also gets me an idea of the shape of the year of what's coming. And when I'm doing my monthly, I always return back to my yearly to make sure that I've got everything included that I need to. This is my monthly template. For a month, at the beginning of a month or towards the end of a month that I'm just about to start, I will look at the dates, the days, and make a template referring to my yearly template. I'll work out what I've got happening. Now I have an imaginary 3 columns here. I have what's going on in the morning, afternoon and evening. I usually try and include a focus. What am I trying to achieve this month? And I work out what I want to do more of, less of, and what I want to keep doing. And then I write a list of all the things that I've got to do for work and all the things I want to achieve in my life. Now, these can be high level. They don't need to be broken down into different sections. So if I had a report to write, for example, I'd write such and such report, but in my weekly, which I'll show you later, I break that down into smaller parts. So introduction, main part, conclusion, whatever it is. Now you can see from this that I have used a piece of washi tape to denote that this is a monthly. And I always put a horizontal piece upon the bottom of the page for my monthlies, and I just cut off the corners so that I can find it easily. So here is an example of a monthly. You can see on the left hand side that I've put the days of the week and the dates down one side, and I've got these 3 imaginary columns, the morning, the afternoon, evening, and I can see everything that's going on there. And this is things that are coming up, so this is what I've got planned. And also what I plan to do, I've got my 3 areas of work lined up there. I should also have put in some life stuff there. For some reason I didn't on that month, but it is something that I'm making sure I'm doing from now on. Here is another one. This was December. You can see the monthly is laid out here. But home, I had all my home important stuff to do, including my tax return. So a weekly template looks like this. Now it's changed several times. It hasn't always looked like this, as with any of the templates, but at the moment I have my days of the week and just put my headlines of what's coming on, so I can look at a glance of what the key things are happening. And then I have my top tasks, and that's taken from my monthly, so I can write down what I know has to be done this week. And then what I do is have these 3 columns. These are just the days of the week, and I just fill these as they go along. So sometimes you'll have a long list, sometimes you have a short list, and usually I fill them to around here. So on a Monday morning, for example, the first thing I will do is I'll write the date, and I'll write down a list of things I need to achieve that day. So dog walk, email and admin, I have a meeting at 10:30 with Sarah, and I need to write a draft report, and I need to have lunch at 12, and you'd continue on. And you see they're all dots next to them, and I would have to cross those off as I do them. So it's like a to-do list, but with clear focus. If I have anything coming up that comes up in the week, I can put it on my monthly, but quite often if it just needs to go next week, I do something called a future log, where you put your future stuff, so a future task or a future event, and I start from the bottom and work my way up. This is an example of a weekly. This was in early September. You can see I've got my days of the week and my key things that are happening here. I have my top tasks, and I have my daily agendas throughout, and these just happen throughout the day, so I get added to as I'm working. Things get taken off. You can see my symbols. Cross means I've achieved it. Take it forward to the next day or later on, it says that half done it there, so I didn't include that one. That's a bit of a rogue code. If I have any priorities, I put those down as well. But you have my work and my life in here, so you've got things that are happening at the weekend, so people who I saw. I also keep a note of my mental health and things like that, which I'll go into another time. Now, they aren't always as fully completed as this. Here is another one where I wasn't well, and so the week took a much smaller amount of time because I just pared back on everything I had to do. Between my weeklies, I will keep my notes for that week. So these are my notes for that week. And then I reach my next, well, that was the next month, but it would go to my next weekly. And so I can always find the notes that I'm looking for between the weeks that I'm working. So that's a brief introduction to how I use the bullet journal. It shows a yearly, a monthly, and a weekly layout with the dailies in each of the weeks. There are other things you can do, and that's keeping lists and trackers, and I'll be talking about that at a later date. But you can keep things called mood trackers, step trackers, money trackers, and you can list things like your films you've watched, books you've read, TV series you've watched, music you've listened to, and so on. And I'll talk about some of these at a later video. In the next video, I will be making clear connections between the principles of Zero is Hero and the things you can do with your bullet journal to maintain a sustainable work-life balance. If you've enjoyed this video, please put a like below. Feel free to ask me questions by filling in the comments boxes. And finally, if you're interested in the upcoming videos, then press subscribe and it will alert you when new material arrives. Thank you for watching. Happy bullet journaling, and here's to sustainable work-life balance.